Hi, God bless you guys. Hope everyone is well. It's been a minute since I recorded a video, but I do want to come in here for a few things. So, like one, thanks to those that have watched my part one of the sexual and molestation abuse, and being in that space and being a victim of all of that. So, thank you for those that watched it. I am still healing, although I am not where I used to be. I have healed a lot. So mentally, emotionally, I have God has really been doing a job and has really been working in my life and has healed a lot of areas in my heart that was messed up and broken. I'm sorry for all the noise because I'm on 25th Street and it's loud over here. Plus they're constructing and all these other things, so I'm gonna apologize now. You really can't hear me, but yes, I do want to come in here and talk about that. I also wanted to come in here and say that I am in a kingdom spouse journey. So I do know who my kingdom spouse is, and I've been waiting and standing still for the past 2 years, I would say. Right now, 2 years, still standing on the promises of God, still believing in God. Have not retracted or have not gone back to who I used to be, which is a promiscuous female. I have not slept with anybody. I have been celibate for, is that the word? I've been practicing celibacy. Yeah, only, well, not only, but it's because I've been healed, and because I'm no longer functioning out of my sexual trauma, but I am moving forward in my healing journey as a healed individual, as a healed woman, as a woman that was molested at a very young age until I was a teenager. And because I am no longer making moves or making decisions based off of that trauma, I am standing on the promises of God, and it's a thing. Like, it can really happen. God can really renew who you are and put your brokenness and mend to pieces and grab all your body parts that are all over the world. Everybody you slept with that you had no business sleeping with, you can actually put those pieces and bring your soul back together where you are created and becoming one with Him again. And that's the space I am. I am one with God, and it's a beautiful space, and it's a nice, it just feels nice and it feels great. And I don't know how else I can explain it, but I no longer make irrational decisions. I no longer just move because of feelings. I move with intention, and I move because I am following Christ. So I do want to also speak about counterfeits. I know there's people that are waiting and standing on their kingdom spouse are also dealing with counterfeits. And counterfeits is a real thing. Like in 2016, I was married, and I was married to my best friend of 20 years. Now, I do want to make this very clear. He was literally my best friend for 20 years. And so, when I was in my trauma, when I was dealing and making decisions based off trauma, I married him because, one, he was my best friend. Two, I knew he loved me. Three, I thought he would never hurt me. Four, I felt safe with him. And but he was a counterfeit, and I had no business being with him, let alone marrying him. Once we got married, I discovered that he was a full functional alcoholic. Now, in 20 years that I've known this man, yes, I've seen him drink, but I had no idea that he was a functioning alcoholic. Two, I never knew him to put his hand on women. I never knew him to be abusive. I've never known him to get out of character, right? Because I've known him for 20 years, so I never knew that side of him until we got married. Once we got married, I would say maybe 2-3 weeks into the marriage, I started seeing all the signs. So he would pass out in front of the house on the stoop. He would need to drink in order for his day to start. He would get real violent when I didn't want to have sex with him, until to the point that he cracked my ribs. And how do I know he cracked my ribs? Because I was, 1, in severe pain. 2, it was hard for me to breathe. I couldn't bend down. I couldn't move. It was a excruciating pain I've never felt. But I never went to the hospital because I didn't want to be that woman that was in an abusive relationship, let alone marriage. Like, that's not. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed, especially because I married my best friend. And I never wanted to admit that I made a mistake. I never wanted to admit that I was one of those women that was in a abusive relationship, right? Like, no matter how you raised, no matter who you are, no matter what race you in, it's embarrassing for the woman that's being abused, when it should be embarrassing for the man that's abusing the woman. Like, we feel ashamed because we're in that space, because we're getting beat up, because we're being mistreated and mishandled. We feel some type of way, but why? Why are we ashamed if we're the ones getting the short end of the stick? But I guess society, I won't even lie. I used to be one of those people that used to be like, I would never let a man put his hand on me. I would never let a man mistreat me. I would never let a man. But I was also the woman that was molested. I was also the woman that was belittled. I was also the woman that was degraded. So yeah. So I never knew. I would have never thought that I would have been in that space, and I was in that space. I was in this abusive relationship. I was with an alcoholic. And not only did he put his hands on me, but he put his hand on my son. Like, I remember one day I got to the apartment and I saw that he was passed out on the living room floor. And I told his daughter and my son at the time, they were little, they were like maybe 10 and 7 or something like that. And I remember when I got into the apartment, I saw him, that he was passed out. I was like, oh, absolutely not. Let's pack up and let's sleep over at mom's house. I'll take you guys to school from there. So while in the process of grabbing our belongings to go spend the night at my mom's house, he got up off the floor. He started yelling and screaming and saying I wasn't going anywhere, and I was totally ignoring him. And I remember him grabbing my laptop. He flung my laptop. My son tried to intervene. Now, mind you, at the time my son was like 7 or 8. It was back in 2016. My son tried to intervene, and my son got in the way. And in the process of him intervening and getting in the way, my ex-husband grabbed him by the neck, by the throat, and picked him up by the neck and slammed him against the wall. And my son ended up with a burst, or his blood vessels on his face popped or bursted. So he had like dots like everywhere. Like, it was just like, anyway, his daughter, his biological daughter, saw what was happening. She grabbed the iron and started beating him in the head with an iron, and he had blood coming down his face. She did not care. That did not stop her from beating her father with the iron. She just kept going. That I had to scream at her and say, to try to get a hold of the situation. I yelled at her, not yelled at her. I yelled at her so she could come too, because I felt like she was in a trance. So as I'm calling her name out, I said, listen, I said, go to the neighbor's house and have them call the police. And that was the last time that I saw that man. I'm lying. That was the last time I interacted with that man. Never again. I used to always, one thing is to put your hands on me, I could deal with it, I could handle it. But when you put your hands on my child, that's a whole nother ball game, and we're not doing that, and I was not gonna let that happen. So counterfeits are real. Counterfeits are real. The devil puts these people in our lives, in our way, in our midst, and they look groomed, and they look like they'll be that perfect person, and they look like they well managed and well maintained, and you think they have the best intentions. However, if they're not living a life of Christ, if they don't have a fear of the Lord, they're going to open themselves to the devil. And that's what ended up happening. So although I married my best friend, and he was literally my best friend, he was actually a counterfeit being used, and he allowed himself to be used by the devil. And he brought a lot of turmoil to my life and to my children's lives, and all because I wanted companionship, all because I felt he was my best friend, he would never do me any harm, all because I was tired of fornicating, all because I was just tired of being alone and sleeping around. I decided to go ahead and marry this man. I was never in love with him. I never loved him as a husband. I never loved him as a boyfriend. I never had that love for him. I loved him as my best friend. And that was a mistake. So don't marry a counterfeit. Don't entertain a counterfeit. Don't be with a counterfeit. Whether you're lonely, depressed, whether you feel horny, none of it matters. When you put in your life in jeopardy, when you put your children's life in jeopardy, it really doesn't matter. Stay away from counterfeits. If the man is not sent by God, if the woman is not sent by God, it's going to create chaos. It's going to create more turmoil. It's going to create a mental it's just going to be worse in the end. And so it's better to wait on God and keep your purity and just stand on God's promises. You know what I mean? Like, just stand on God's promises. He would not fail you. He would not steer you wrong. He won't do that. He loves you so much. He will never put a man or a woman in your path that is out to hurt you. Never. That's not the God we serve. That's not the God I serve. It's starting to drizzle. Putting my phone away. I did want to share that because I keep hearing counterfeits. It's a real thing. Stay away from them. They create more chaos. Have a blessed day, guys. Bye.